good afternoon, and welcome to Something Wicked This Way Comes. I'm your host, Zanaris. You may know me as your Dungeon Master on Thursdays for Legion, or as the random guest in our game channels and other things like that. And here are some of my fellow investigators and researchers. Hi, everybody. So,
Hello.
today, by the pricking of my thumbs, Something Wicked This Way Comes. So, let's talk about the wicked things, the bad things, the unsightly things. And today we're going to talk about forbidden flesh, cannibalism, people who just have a hankering that only hands can satisfy. And it's one of those things, and I hope that all of you caught that little old school joke. But anyways, when we talk about it, I know that everyone automatically jumps to serial killers and everything else. But cannibalism within of itself is actually almost as old as the oldest profession in the world. And we see it in every single aspect of the world as well. And the reason why I mention that is because in the animal kingdom, there's quite a few unfortunate things that happen. With that being said, before we start, this is not a family friendly subject. If you have children in the room or if you are triggered by things that are very, very unsightly, I would highly advise you to go and take a moment, sit back, and maybe watch something else. But if you're in the mood to go and hear about something dark, twisted, and might make you a little bit hungry a little bit later on, if you're into that type of stuff, you should sit down, get yourself a nice cup of coffee or tea, and listen to my sonorous voice as I explain to you that cannibalism is a lot more normal in certain places than what you think. Hmm. With that being said, let's talk about it. Cannibalism. Now, there's a lot of fun facts I was able to go and find as we were able to kind of break it down, and I'm pulling up my little fact sheet. So, the definition of cannibalism from the Cambridge Dictionary: the practice of a person who eats human flesh or the behavior of an animal that eats others of its own type. That sounds kind of general, and it doesn't really go and give us everything that we need to go and know about it, because it's not just the act of eating to eat. A lot of times we'll go and we'll see it done ritualistically. It will, oh, I swallowed that word. It will be done like a ritual, something that you'll go and you'll find in Papua New Guinea, or you'll go and you'll see in certain Mayan folklore and things like that, which we'll talk about in just a few moments. So, to kind of start it off, we're all animals, and cannibalism in the animal kingdom is a lot more present than what you're going to think. But I have some fun people who actually participate in cannibalism in the animal kingdom that you may not know about. So, boy, one of the biggest animal predators is poultry, or kind of poultry cannibalism is the act of one individual of a poultry species consuming all or part of another individual of the same species as food. It commonly occurs in flocks or domestic hens reared for egg production, although it can also occur in domestic turkeys, pheasants, and poultry species. It is literally creating the pecking order, dominance. And the reason why they go and they call it the pecking order is because that increased need to dominate will also go and create increased aggressive cannibalism. So they won't eat the whole animal, but they will pluck out its eyes. They will eat some of its leg. They will eat some of its wing. It's a thing. So we also have little things that it's talked about. Cannibalism can cause large mortality rates in the flock. And vent pecking, sometimes called colloquial cannibalism, is considered to be a separate form of cannibalistic pecking, as it occurs in well-fed birds, and only the cloaca is targeted. Does anybody know what the cloaca is, by the way?
I have never heard of that.
Oh boy! So, so the cloaca, the common cavity, the digestive tract that releases both excretory and genital products in vertebrates. Birds will literally go and pick out their genitalia, and only their genitalia, as a sign of dominance.
Oh.
I know.
Oh, that's
Don't you think
lovely.
it's weird? and then we have cases like hamsters. that hamsters will actually go and eat their young depending on certain things: fear, scent, lack of food, inability to care for the litter. We'll see cannibalism happen as a process of protecting the litter or protecting the mother so she can have enough nutrients to go and protect those who she feels will survive. It's Darwinism in the most extreme of cases. Um, but it's not always for nutrition. Sometimes we have fun moments like sexual cannibalism, which is presently large in spiders and other invertebrates, including gastropods. This refers to the killing and consumption of co-specific sexual partners during courtship and during or after copulation. So, in most parts, when we go, we have a mantis, which a female mantis, which would be larger than a male mantis. She'll eat the male, and she does that for nutrients, or she also does it because she's kind of tired of having him around. And the only time you ever seen a male actually consume a female after intercourse has been in the laboratory. It does not happen in nature. One of those things to go and think about as we kind of get more into it. Uh, they also have seen sexual cannibalism recorded in the female redback spider, the black widow spider, the praying mantis, and scorpion. Another part is size structure cannibalism. Cannibalism, which is on older, larger, more mature individuals consuming small, younger specifics and size structured populations. Uh, One thing about that is that we actually go and see that in lions. When a lion will go and take over a pride, he will kill and eat the smaller lions to go and cause the female to go back into heat so that he can go and reproduce with that female to go and create his own brood. Yeah,
That's
nature's fucked up. Nature's no joke. It is.
Oh yeah.
It is just one of those things. So one of the things too that I wanted to go and talk about is filial cannibalism, specific type of size structure cannibalism, which adults eat their own offspring, and that's what I was mentioning now. That you go and you'll see the hamsters and things like that. Um, Now, and one thing too that, mm, light him if you got him. It's one thing that I kind of want to kind of draw out to everybody is that it doesn't just happen with living litter. They'll also consume stillborn infants. They'll consume miscarriage fetuses, and if they as well as infertile and still incubating eggs to go and get back nutrients to go and care for the litter.
uh,
This is just one of those things, and it's a lot of people believe that is. Oh yeah,
out of
Emily.
curiosity, is this anything to do with like the black market and people thinking that they have magical properties that they're able if they consume these fetuses?
There's always one of those things that, and cannibalism, as we'll talk about a little bit later on, is the mysticism of it all, the ability to be able to go and consume the flesh and have the spirit walk with you forever, or exo cannibalism, that when you are eating an enemy to go and show power over them. And then you have Indo cannibalism, like in Papua New Guinea, the Koro, that when they eat their dead. Now, talking about that, it's and we'll get to them in a second because I don't want to go on. I don't want to jump it on that one because the Koro have something very particular to them called Kuru disease that I am super excited to go and talk about because it's going to lead us to some really fun creepy shit. So, now with humans though, oh, give me a second. My cat was saying hi. So, with humans, it's almost highly ritualistic. It's one of those things that we're going to see really often in those spaces that are people trying to get back in touch or honor their dead in certain aspects. But I don't want people thinking, oh, that's just, when people lose food and stuff like that. National Geographic actually was talking about and how archaeologists have found evidence of cannibalism in the human family tree at least as far back as 800,000 years. And though cutting and gnawing of bones can't reveal motivations, ancient remains do offer a few clues. At the Grandolina cave in Spain, there were butchered remains of bison, sheep, deer, that were mixed with at least 11 other humans, all children or adolescents. And all those bones showed man weapons being used on them to go and clean them, or gnaw marks on the bones, so showing that they were stripped. So the thing about that one too is that evidence also suggests that the Grandolina residents, an ancient human relative called Homo antecessor, ate the victims' brains. This is where we start to get into the weird
Ew.
territories. hmm The brain is seen in a lot of ritualistic cultures as having the soul, the brain and the heart, the kidney and the livers. So not the livers. Could you imagine somebody having more than one? It's just like, but the liver. So, but the thing about that one though is that in this cave, the butcher human parts appeared in layers in the cave, spanning about 100,000 years. So that means that this happened oftenly in various times because it was literally one level of dirt, then another level, and then another level. So we're talking about thousands of years of cannibalistic practices happening right there in that same spot.
Now, one
Which is
interesting
what
thing.
make them.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No,
I
tell
didn't
me.
mean to get in. Now, one interesting thing too is nutritionally speaking, the heart is very high protein. So is the liver as well, I believe. But the brain is almost entirely fatty tissue. So,
It is.
nutritionally, um, I'd be interested to hear what that does to somebody.
Talking about that, I'm so glad that you mentioned it because people
Uh,
suck nutritionally. The calories that you get from people are atrocious, and the reason for that is the amount of fatty tissue. Human bodies do not carry as much muscle as a deer would, as a bison would. A report done by Monica Serrano from the National Geographic staff uh, in April 2017 actually goes and mentions that humans were compared to most animals, when compared to most animals, are extremely calorie deficient due to low muscle percentage and very high fat content. Deer, boar, horses, woolly rhinoceroses, and mammoths all showing higher muscle content and thus better nutritional value. Meaning, for the most part, can you survive from consuming a person? Sure. Will the deer last you longer and actually be more of a sufficient meal? 100%. And that's kind of where that weirdness goes into because all of a sudden we'll see cannibalism happen in places that the Donner Party, there in the wintertime, they had no idea what they were doing. They completely bomb blasted, so they started to eat their dead. And then they went from eating their dead to eating each other. And you'll see this happen, and there's actually yeah. What's up?
oh, I was curious with eating humans. Are
Mm.
you more likely to get sick because any kind of disease that would affect the human could
Oh,
more likely affect you? Kind of like how mad cow disease was something that could be passed to humans, but other
do I have?
diseases the animals might
I got
have.
something for you. You literally just
Ooh.
opened up a whole new thing. So with that, let's talk about let's talk about Kuru. Kuru, the human version of mad cow. So Kuru is a rare, incurable, fatal neurodegenerative disorder that was formerly common among the Fora people of Papua New Guinea. So everybody stay with me now because there's going to be a lot of science that comes out for a second. Kuru is a form of a transmissible spongiform encephalopathy caused by transmission of abnormally folded proteins, prions. So I'll explain. Viruses, right?
Nice.
When you have a sickness that's brought in by a prion is kind of considered like a rogue protein. Your brain has all these proteins in it. When this rogue protein goes inside, it begins to unfold it. So when that protein folds differently, and the reason why it folds the way that it does is so that it can fit better chemically in certain places. Those folds are part of what make you human. So when a prion makes that fold go inside out, you now have a genetic disorder. And the bad thing about that is there's no coming back. Prion sickness is one of those things that once you've got it, that's a done deal. The term kuru derives from the forward kuria or juria, to shake, due to the body tremors that are a classic symptom of the disease. Kuru itself means trembling. also known as the laughing sickness, due to the pathological bursts of laughter, which are symptoms of the disease. So, and the funniest thing about this is, it was mostly in women. And the reason for that was in Papua New Guinea, it was only the women that were being allowed to go and consume the brain. When they were consuming the brain, it was seen as a ritualistic thing of that they were the only people strong enough to be able to deal with the possible demons that were inside of the soul. What they didn't understand was that some of them were getting kuru and some of them weren't. So that's the thing. Now, the
Ooh.
epidemic likely started when a villager developed sporadic Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease. The Creutzfeldt is, again, one of those spongiform diseases, just like mad cow, which is bovine, spongiform, and cellulopathy, commonly known as mad cow disease, incurable, invariably fatal disease of cattle. Symptoms include abnormal behavior, trouble walking, weight loss. Later in the course of the disease, the cow becomes unable to function normally. The time between function and onset of symptoms is generally 4 to 5 years. And this is the wild thing. Kuru can incubate for 5 to 13 to 20 years in the body before it hits. And when it finally hits, because God has a sense of humor and he doesn't want you eating people, or they don't want you eating people, 6 months, you're dead. You begin to tremble. You can't focus. Then you begin to laugh uncontrollably for the most oddest of reasons. Then you can't stand. Yes, Anne.
Now, I have a question. There are some tribes that they eat human flesh. They have a developed part of their brain where they're able to consume human flesh without having an issue.
They are able to do that. That is true. Yes, and that is another big
Are they
thing that we
cooking
need to.
it?
And that's actually something that I'm glad that you guys mentioned now too, because there's another book called Toward a Theory of Peace: The Role of Moral Beliefs by Randall Carroll and Watson Forsberg. In many cases of ritual or customary cannibalism, part of the human body that is ingested does not take the form of food or resemble food. In some cases, it is obscured by food, meaning you're not getting a brain on a plate, you're not getting a heart on a plate, you're not getting livers or kidneys on a plate. The ash, the burnt bones of the deceased may be dissolved in a drink. Their blood may be mixed in with food. Ritual cannibalism will involve consumption, but it will involve consumption of flesh in ways that aren't horrifically gruesome like you see in the movies. It will be prepared to be consumed as a ritual. So, when you see somebody ripping out a heart and biting into it, although that did happen in the Mayans, just kind of keep that in mind, guys. There were certain places that didn't. But the thing that they'd like to talk about is the activity is generally considered to be of the utmost importance as a social obligation or sacred duty. It is not being done to horrify, it's not being done for cruelty. It's being done as the ingestion of human substance is usually just one step in a much longer and more elaborate ritual. This is how they get closer to those that they love. This is how they got closer to the gods. This is how they got closer to the understanding of the world. So we also have to take a look at how much was real and how much was colonizer input. When people saw that they were drinking blood, all of a sudden they were eating feet. They were chopping off their heads and all these other things. So we got to take a look at that.
Yeah,
Now,
Yes,
that makes sense because it reminds me of a lot of Vietnamese food. They drink blood, like in their soups, like cow blood, and like
yeah.
it's just part of the cuisine, which would be very strange to like colonizers for sure.
100.
now that
Oh, sorry,
that brings up a really good segue that you just mentioned, Leo. Grammel 62 Grammel asked, "What about humans eating animal brains like monkeys?"
Still, human consumption of brains. Plain truth, you probably shouldn't. Parasites, other prion diseases, God only knows what else you could go and find in there. Tapeworms, especially in things like monkeys, chimpanzees. I would heavily ask you to reconsider. If you do go in some type of bovine brain, which is very common in German cuisine, that they'll eat fried cow brain and stuff like that. I get it. Make sure that it's completely cooked. I personally, I have actually eaten brain. I've eaten brain before. Not human brain, but I have had
I
pork
have
brain.
as well.
Ooh.
Because I was trying to become one with the piggy. Which, by the way, pork cannibalism on piglets is very real as well. You can actually find them, and that usually happens when they're in large groups. They will literally eat each other's legs, just and or their snouts or ears.
Oof.
That happens. So, just one of those things. But
Factory
I
farm bed.
I wanted to also go and talk about.
Sorry.
No. I also wanted to go and talk about one of my favorite aspects of this because kuru, or this whole the whole process of human beings becoming dreadfully sick for eating other human beings has created a cryptid. And I think that we can take a moment to completely disprove this creature. Not saying that this hasn't been a thing, but sit with me for a moment, and if you get a second, have yourself a sip of coffee because we get to go into the fantastical, which we don't usually get to do in something wicked. So, hmm. And I'm talking about the Wendigo. The Wendigo was gaunt to the point of emaciation, its desiccated skin pulled tightly over its bones, with its bones pushing out of its skin, its complexion an ash gray of death, and its eyes pushed back deep into their sockets. The Wendigo looked like a giant, gaunt skeleton recently disinterred from the grave. What lips it had were tattered and bloody, unclean and suffering from the separation of the flesh. The Wendigo gave off a strange and eerie odor of decay and decomposition, of death and corruption. The Wendigo, or Wendigo madness, something known in Native American tribes in America. So let's get into. Let me open up my notes real quick. Dun, 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 dun.
And if I could interject real quick, this also ties
Please.
into many cultures around the world, where there's many myths of cannibalism and cannibals becoming literally monstrous.
Monsters.
You have
Yes.
Wendigo, the Minotaur to an extent.
Mhm.
Most of the Greek monsters were man monster hybrids who ate other people.
Hmm.
So there is this really great website called The Legends of America, and I did some research in them, and they were super duper nice. In the north woods of Minnesota, the forests of the Great Lake region, and the central regions of Canada is said to live a malevolent being called the Wendigo. The creature may appear as a monster with some characteristics of a human, or as a spirit who has possessed the human being and made them become monstrous. The original concept of the Wendigo isn't what you see now, with antlers and a deer head. That is an Americanized version of it that has come out. The original Wendigo was very human, very gaunt, close to the face, very sick, all signs of Kuru, of the brain proteins bending, making them extremely gaunt, the eyes sucking into their head, making horrific noises, the uncontrollable laughter that comes with having your brain proteins bend, tremoring, moving inconsistently, again, coming from having your brain proteins dealing with the consumption of human flesh. The Wendigo within of itself isn't a cryptid, it's a cautionary tale. The creature has long been known among the, and forgive me if I destroy these words, I'm so sorry, the Eastern Cree, the Algonquin Ojibwe, the Salatois, the West Main Swampy Cree, the Naskapi, and the Innu, who have described them as giants, many times larger than human beings, although the descriptions can vary somewhat. Common to all these is the view that the Wendigo is malevolent, cannibalistic, supernatural being that's strongly associated with the winter, the north, coldness, famine, and starvation. All the things that would cause you to consume another person. So, when we really come to think about it, are we really dealing with a cryptid? Are we really dealing with some Bigfoot type entity that is coming out to go and destroy you, that has ceaseless hunger? Are we dealing with people? People who have lost their minds and have decided to go and do something horrific and to go and consume the flesh of the living. Um,
Wow.
one of the let's see, because I actually saw one of my favorite ones here. I hope that this is it. Uh, Oh, I lost you.
Oh no.
So there is. Oh, I can't find it in this one, but I will tell it to you as I know it. There's an Indian legend of a Wendigo that was hunting and found a young boy, and the young boy was too thin. The Wendigo did not want to consume a child so small, so it kidnapped the child, and it tried to fan it up. As they traveled across the forest and things like that, it would make the child go into cities and towns. And one time, the Wendigo allowed him for too long. The Indian told the other Indians, "The Wendigo has sent me, and he's trying to get me to fatten myself up." And they heard the Wendigo calling out to the boy, "Come back, come back. There's so much to do. I have to keep feeding you to consume you." So the Indians find him. They almost beat this creature to death. They cut off both of its legs and they leave it to die. Later on that evening, they find the Wendigo again, consuming the bone marrow from its own legs. And the Indians ask, "Why?"
Oh.
And they say, "Because I am so very delicious." So,
Oh.
with that,
That's.
we see the mind of something broken, something of insatiable greed and gluttony, which, when you become ill with something that will truly go and make your mind break, it is something that can happen. And on that note, let's talk about some famous cannibals that some of y'all might know. I'm gonna start him off quickly because everybody and their mother has heard of this guy. There's been movies, there's been music soundtracks. Our good old friend Jeffrey Dahmer. So, Jeffrey. For those of you who are watching,
I hate that guy.
I have issues with him because, and you're gonna see this as something that happens with the majority of cannibals that we're gonna mention. People that are extremely alone, that are trying to find someone that will never leave them, and in their mind, the act of consuming someone else is going to make them stay forever, whatever the hell that even begins to mean. With Jeffrey Dahmer, we have, and you see, and this is the difference, and these are the reasons why I want to mention these guys too. Ritualistic cannibalism happening to honor the dead, and then a sociopath hunting another human being, drilling holes in their head, pouring acid into their brain to make them into a sex slave, and then deciding to go and eat their buttocks and chest muscles are not the same thing. And it's really important that we go and we make those differentials, because whenever you see movies that are talking about cannibal tribes of the Amazon, okay, sure, that's just not reality. The reality is that, are there tribes most likely that if you get caught slipping, that you might get eaten? Yeah, you shouldn't be there anyways. Now, cannibal that's hunting you on the street, that's looking at you thinking, "I want you to stay with me forever." That's a whole different jam. So Jeffrey did that to quite a few folks. And then we have one of my favorites, because he disgusts me so greatly, Albert Fish.
Yes.
You guys know anything about Mr. Fish?
I'm gonna leave it to you, but a little bit of a fun little tidbit that I always find kind of funny is that I believe it's his grandniece or great grandniece is now a famous YouTuber,
She is.
and she's actually really fun. You should check her out.
Then and friends actually 100% sure that I can't remember the name off the top of my head.
I believe it was Maggie
But-
Mayfish.
Oh, I hope so, because believe it or not, Albert Fish killed children. He was a rapist. He was a child cannibal, and he loved to send letters to families about what he had done to these children. But it's not just that made him awful. It's also his sadism, or his masochism. Fish would drive nails into his scrotum and genitalia to be able to achieve erection, something that he decided to start doing when he had seen a dissection of a human penis in a wax museum. And it brought him to the understanding that that was the only way that he could achieve. On top of that, he would beat himself with a nine tails, beat himself with a paddle covered in nails, have his children beat his buttocks with a nail covered paddle as well.
Oh.
But oddly enough, his children always talked about how Albert never touched them, how Albert never beat them, how Albert was never terrifying to them. But that's all to say, he also kidnapped a young girl, right underneath her family's nose, under the guise of being someone else, saying that he was taking her to a party. He strangled the child, and then he consumed parts of her, and he sent a letter talking about how wonderful her body tasted to her parents. Yeah, if you got a little bit of something to drink, you might want to go take a drink of that, because I cannot stand that bastard.
Oh, I have to jump in because, Daniel, you accidentally gave me an amazing segue. Because I can't recommend that you drink Jameson right now. See,
Jameson.
Daniel's laughing because he got that reference.
Jameson. So
I didn't get it. What was it? I don't get it.
I can hit you with it. So, and Fran just added a little bit of extra oomph in this one. The creator of Jameson decided that he wanted to see cannibalism. He visited a tribe. He paid for a 12-year-old girl. He gave her to the tribe, and he paid to be able to watch them prepare, cook, and eat her so that he can go and do sketches.
Oh.
That's real.
At the amazing price of 12 handkerchiefs.
12 handkerchiefs, baby. Yeah,
How much is that?
not much.
Not anything really worth a 12-year-old. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, Jameson sounds like a
Yep.
dick.
Yeah, Jameson was a dick.
I tell my Irish friends.
Yeah, exactly. Tell your Irish friends. There's better Irish whiskey out there, anyways.
Mhm.
Now, there is one person that I want to mention at the end of it all, because his case is so. Oh God, I don't even know how to explain him. His case is so different. His case is so confusing to me that when I first heard it, I thought it was a joke. His name is Armin Mindes. Armin is known as he ran the Butcher's Cafe, I believe it was called, during the first years of the internet, when the internet was a wild, wild place, and that you could go and see terrible, terrible things happen. Armin had decided that he was looking for a consensual victim to consume.
Yep.
The difference with Armin,
Oh,
they
this guy.
had to be consensual.
Yeah.
It's not that he was hunting anybody. It's not that he was trying to go make like a field of people. It's not that he wanted some type of lover to do all that. No, he wanted to consume another human being, and this comes again from stark, raving loneliness. Something that Armin suffered from as his father had left when he was a child. All of his brothers had left when he was a child. And he lived with his mother in a 32-room building, a mansion, a castle in Germany, in Rottenburg. This fella, when he had finally decided about all this, his mother had just passed. He was no longer in the military. And he decided that he was going to kind of get this going. So he meets a gentleman by the name of Bernard Jürgen Armando Brandes, an engineer from Berlin. My Armin, I'm going to call him Armin because his last name is difficult for me to pronounce, as he put it, was looking for a normally built 18 to 25-year-old to be slaughtered and then consumed. He had tons of people say that they wanted it. Tons of people. But everybody kept on falling through. And one thing that they do not mention in the article that I'm reading, but I actually found on other research, Brands was not the first person to come to Armin's house. Another gentleman had actually come to his home, and as he was laying on the table where the process was going to begin, he looked at Armin and said, "I'm sorry, but I don't feel well. I don't think I can do this." And Armin released him, saying that it was all right. Again, we have this very odd case of this man who was so desperately alone that the thought of killing someone to consume them wasn't enough. It had to be consensual. To the point, in his interviews, they go and they talk about his neighbor, who was a woman that had 4 children, that he would babysit the children. She is surprisingly comes out and says, he babysat my children and they loved him. They were always super excited to see him. And even now, after everything that I know, I would still let him babysit my kids."
Wow.
Wow.
So that's the thing. So
That's nuts.
Brands makes it to the house. They engage in intercourse to do the thing, and they begin to kind of work things out. They talk about everything. He tells him what's going to happen. He gives him all these sleeping pills. He gives him a whole bunch of cough syrup. They give him all this stuff. And the only thing that Brands asked for was that he wanted that the first thing that had to be cut was the penis, and that they had to eat it together. It wasn't an if, it wasn't a but, that's what had to happen. Which, if you guys just happen to listen to any type of metal, Rammstein made a song called Mein Teal, or Mein Peace, or My Cock, if you want to go and take a second to listen to that before we jump into this. So, with that, when he cuts him, he talks about how he screams for 30 to 40 seconds, and how the blood begins to drip out like fountains, but that the penis was inedible, that it was truly, utterly, horrifically inedible, and that that it was either too burnt or that it just was not edible to eat. And as he waited for Brands to bleed out, hours had passed. He sat down to read a Star Trek book. These are his exact words, mind you. All of this is being recorded. All of this is being photographed. He later decides to go up to him and tell him, "I'm going to slit your throat so we can potentially go through the process. Are you okay with that?" And Brands tells him yes. After that, he goes through the process of breaking down the body, puts it in a freezer underneath some pizza boxes, and later on will set out his finest dinnerware, light candles, and make steaks from his back and buttocks. And I'm not going to go into the sexual face that this man puts on when he talks about this, but it is disturbing, to say the least. He gets caught because he eats almost all of Brand's body, and there's only a little bit left after a transcourse of about 6 to 8 months. And after that, I believe it's an architect student that sees that he puts an ad out on the internet again, and they start looking for him. They find him, and the very first thing that he did was, no, that's wild boar. And then when they realized it was human, he admitted to it. Not only did he admit to it, he gives them the videos, the whole thing, breaks it down.
Wow.
And here's a fun thing. There is no law against cannibalism in Germany. So nobody knew what the fuck to go and charge this guy with.
It was consensual.
Let that roll around your heads. And on top of it all, it's consensual. But, and this was the court case's biggest thing, who in their right mind would consent to be eaten?
Yeah.
So, and that's where they get him. For them, it's because at first they had put it as a manslaughter conviction, and people were not hearing that bullshit. They were just like, no, sir, that is 100% not okay. He was convicted of manslaughter and sentenced to 8 years and 6 months in prison. But
what gets me is those low sentences.
That's one thing. But then he
Like
was
the small
also retrialed.
Mm-hmm.
He was retrialed in April, and now he is in prison for the rest of his life because he killed for sexual gratification, a motive proved by his videotaping of the murder. So he was placed as on May 10th, 2006, the court in Frankfurt convicted Armin of murder and sentenced him to life imprisonment, which he is there now. He has since become a vegetarian and no longer eats meat.
The irony.
The irony.
He's
though.
not one of us. Just, we're not associating with the guy.
He is not invited to the vegetarian cookout. We don't talk about him.
We don't talk about him.
So, I hope that I was able to go and help you all to see a little bit more of something wicked. Cannibalism within of itself. Part of nature's grand design. Part of nutritional value in some animals. But oddly enough, as there seems to be some type of process that kind of lets you know that people pretty much should not be eating people. If not because of you turning into some type of Wendigo creature, mentally, the lack of nutrition that you actually get from people. So just kind of keep that in mind. The next time that you think that you might want to bite into somebody. I'm so glad that I was able to sit here with everyone. Exactly. Hopefully not. But so glad that you were able to sit here with me on Something Wicked This Way Comes, as we're here to go and prick the tips of our thumbs to it, and we enjoy the process that we're able to go by. I do not know when you will see me again. Hopefully very, very soon. And with that, I'm not sure what we'll be bringing the next time around, but we will definitely go and let you guys know as we sit down and do some more research. And please, everyone in our Discord, know that you are welcome to come in here and chime in if you have anything that you want to go and ask, anything that you're just kind of curious about. And if there's any questions in the chat, anyone that would like to go and ask me something that you probably don't want to say out loud in public, and you want to go and share it in a safe space, that's okay too. You feel free to.
So
But Madam Editor, is there anything that you would like to add on to?
yes, there is one thing that I see that 62 Gramel has just chimed in.
Grandma, how are you?
The royal family of England.
Ooh.
Oh no, like, ooh. We could totally talk about the
That
royal
would be
family
cool.
of England on Something Wicked This Way Comes. Oh, there's so much to unravel in that, by the way. Oh my God. Princess Diana, Prince Albert. Good
Ugh.
God.
If you want to go further back, the War of the Roses.
Yeah.
If there was ever a wicked group of
Ugh.
people, I assure you that they are the royals. So don't, and that's actually one thing that I'm glad that Grandma mentions. Don't let the facade that you see out there in the world now of everybody all slap happy and all kind to each other. That's not how that's always been. But the royal family is a good one. I like that a lot, actually. That's a lot of fun. I think that we could do some fun stuff with that. Also, what other things do we have popping up?
What we do have for Something Wicked This Way Comes that we're working on is the wickedness in the Caribbeans, where Francisco, Miguel, and Daniel actually know personally of a family killer.
We went to high school with this kid. He was in our drama class.
Oh yeah.
So that's something to look forward to. Keep an eye on for Maha Mondays that's coming up. It'll be coming back soon with Leo, fructose corn syrup, and Cheshire Mad, and possibly I will be joining them as we play Minecraft. Tuesdays we have map making.
You will be with us.
Tuesdays we have map making. Wednesdays is our free day, I believe. Thursday, Legion D&D Let's Play. Fridays, Watch Us Die, sometimes community movie nights. If you want to watch a movie with us, join our Discord server. And Saturdays, we have Matanzo Speaks. And Sundays, of course, we have Daniel's Something Wicked This Way Comes.
And Something Wicked This Way Comes. So, with that being said, as the weird sisters reached out to Macbeth and told him the horrific future that aligned him, I tell you of your future that comes in this week. Come back to us, listen to us, We are so very grateful for your presence. Thank you for being here for something wicked. I hope to be able to share the wicked things with you again very soon. Have an excellent Sunday and be safe. Take care. Wash your hands. We will see you soon. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.